Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I had just gotten through a really rough breakup from a codependent relationship, so I was going through a phase of trying to be more independent, self-sufficient, and generally okay with being alone. I would go to a lot of movies, restaurants, and do all those sorts of things by myself. At the time, I was living in Montana, where spending time outdoors is a prime recreational activity, especially camping. It seemed like a good exercise in being truly self-reliant, so I packed a small tent and went to Jerry Johnson Hot Springs. That's a natural hot spring with a few small, mostly natural pools out in the mountains on the border of Montana and Idaho. It's truly in the middle of nowhere. From the interstate, it's about a 3-mile hike across a bridge and into the woods. It's around a 45-minute drive in either direction before you reach any kind of civilization. There isn't a motel or anything like that nearby, just forest land and a few warm water ponds. If you ever go yourself, you'll probably be the only person there. There was plenty of daylight left, so I decided I'd soak for a bit, then set up my camp. When I was finished, I made the short hike to the pools, only to find a couple, a man and a woman in their 30s, already in the main pool. They looked very startled to see me. I said a friendly hello from a distance as I approached, but they didn't really respond. They just kind of stared me down. Then the guy said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was really confused about why they were being so confrontational. I didn't know what he meant. The man then asked me, "Are you the one who's been creeping around the woods watching us for the last hour?" I assured them I had no idea what they were talking about. They warned me that some weirdo had been in the woods, way off the trail. Apparently, they had been yelling at him, and he just wouldn't respond. He'd stare at them, then walk away into the woods for a while, then pop out somewhere else entirely to watch them again. After I assured them this wasn't me, I got undressed and got into the water. I noticed their pupils were huge, so I'm guessing they ate some magic mushrooms or something. I never asked, but it seemed obvious. It wasn't that big of a deal, basically the perfect setting for something like that anyway. Made me think maybe they were just having a bad trip. We talked for a while, first about that creepy guy and then about various other things. The mood really lightened up, and they seemed pretty relieved not to be alone. I'm a relatively large guy, so I guess they felt a bit safer with me around. No more sightings of the creeper either. They got out of the pool way before me. I was in the pool all by myself for about 20 minutes or so before I heard some shouting off in the woods. I decided to cut my soak short, just in case someone was in trouble. I got out, dried off, and got dressed, still mostly wet. That was when I began to hear more shouting. I started moving quickly and eventually came across the couple shouting into the woods and saying things like, "Hey, we have a gun." They didn't actually have one, they were just feeling threatened. I asked what was going on, and they said the man had just been standing ominously in the path, blocking their way, looking at them from way off in the distance. He had retreated into the woods again and was now out of sight. They had never gotten a good look at him. We all walked back to our cars and decided that maybe it would be safer to camp near each other. At some point, an official came around, the guy you have to pay to actually stay there. He told me he knew about another spot that was relatively flat and would probably work better for us if we were feeling uncomfortable. I agreed and followed along. It wasn't far, so we set up our tents about 100 yards apart. I wanted to give them at least some space to trip or whatever they were doing. Everyone needs their privacy. We were in a dry season on raw forest floor, so nobody made a campfire. I got all set up and just sat around reading a book and enjoying the nature. The mosquitoes made me retreat into my tent around 6 p.m. By 9 o'clock, I was in bed trying to get some sleep. At about midnight, I was suddenly awoken by the sound of desperate screaming. I grabbed my flashlight and my .22 pistol and started running toward the other tent. When I arrived, the two of them were standing outside with their own flashlights, completely losing it. They said the guy had been there watching them sleep and that we all needed to get out of there ASAP. Then they showed me a slice in the wall of their tent that the man had made with a knife. They haphazardly packed all their stuff in a hurry. We went back to the cars. Only then did I realize I hadn't really grabbed any of my own stuff. I asked if they would go back with me to get it, and they basically just said, "Sorry, dude, you're on your own." I thought about it for a minute. I could come back the next day and grab all my stuff, but it was over an hour drive each way, and I was already there. I did have a gun on me, but if I killed someone in the woods, even in self-defense, that would just be the beginning of another nightmare that would probably last the rest of my life. I made the decision to go back for my stuff right then. I killed my flashlight and basically went stealth mode. I emerged into the trees surrounding the clearing where my tent had been. It was really quiet. I thought maybe I'd be able to hear him. It took me about 20 minutes to get back to my tent since I was moving so slowly and carefully. When I got there, it was totally untouched. I quickly grabbed my backpack, put my flashlight in my mouth, and packed up my tent. Then I ran back to my car, loaded revolver in my other hand. I got in, started the car, and drove away. What never really occurred to me until later is that I never actually saw this guy. To this day, I can't be sure there really was an ominous man out in the woods at all. I really doubt those people sliced their own tent, but at the same time, I don't know. Maybe someone really was out there, lurking all day and night just to scare some campers. It's possible. It's also possible those two campers were just messing with me, but if so, they deserve Oscars, because they genuinely seemed terrified. And so was I. I guess I'll never really know. I was 14 years old and living at home with my parents. One Thursday afternoon, I got home from school at the usual time. Normally, both of my parents would still be at work for a few hours after I arrived, and they worked away in the city. That afternoon, I had a bit of homework to do, but not much. I went up to my bedroom to get it out of the way. My room was upstairs at the back of the house. About 20 minutes in, I heard a car pulling into the driveway. Naturally, I thought it was either my mom or dad getting home early. I paused what I was doing and went downstairs to say hello. When I reached the main level and looked out the front window, I saw a random black SUV in the driveway, one I'd never seen before. The doors all opened at once, and a bunch of men got out while one stayed in the driver's seat. I quickly backed away from the window. I had no idea who they were, but they definitely didn't look friendly. They didn't go to the front door. Instead, I saw through a side window that they were moving toward the backyard. The SUV then backed out of the driveway and left. I ran back upstairs to grab my phone. From my bedroom window, I watched the men walk into the woods behind our house. We had a large wooded area on the back end of our property, and once they entered it, they disappeared from sight. I called my parents. They both said they were stuck in traffic but on their way home. They told me to call the police right away, which I did. The cops arrived a little while later. I told them everything I could, and they searched the yard and woods, but the men were gone. There was no sign of them anywhere. My parents got home soon after the police left. Nobody could figure out who those men were or what they were doing. I was just relieved they were gone. The very next day, I got home from school again. Much like the day before, I was alone. I went up to my room as usual, but this time I noticed something out the window. One of the men from the previous day was standing in our backyard, just outside the woods. He seemed to be staring right at me. I immediately ducked down and called the police again. They came out and searched the area, but just like before, there was no trace of anyone. Strangely, after that, I never saw those men again. To this day, I still don't know what was going on. Who were those guys? Why did they show up and head into our woods? It remains a mystery. When I was 17 or 18, I lived at home with my parents. My dad traveled a lot for work as an engineer. When my siblings and I were younger, my mom stayed home to take care of us, but since my brother and sister had already moved out, I assured my parents I didn't mind having the place to myself. They wasted no time and started leaving me home alone regularly. It wasn't a problem. I had no issues entertaining myself with a movie blasting through my parents' ridiculously loud speakers or making pasta with meat sauce. But when it came time to sleep, the house felt eerie. It doesn't matter where you are, being alone in total silence can make any place feel creepy. One night, I was trying to sleep in my room and managed to fall into a deep sleep when something suddenly woke me up. As I started to regain my senses, I realized a man was standing over me, shining a cell phone flashlight right at my face. I shouted out in fear. The man immediately asked me, "Tell me, does John live here?" His voice clearly belonged to an older man. It was one of the most awkward and terrifying moments of my life. I was half naked, lying in bed with some stranger hovering over me. There's no John in my family, and I didn't know what to do or say. I stared at him in disbelief, and then he turned and ran out of the room. I heard him shuffling down the hallway and could still see the beam of his flashlight bouncing off the walls. My heart was pounding. I got up, grabbed the softball bat from my closet, and shut my bedroom door. I stood there for what felt like forever, wondering if I should open it and go after him. I questioned whether it had even been real. Maybe it was a dream or sleep paralysis. But in sleep paralysis, you can't move, and I had moved. Turning my head is what made him run. The whole thing shook me. When I finally opened the door and stepped into the hallway, the house felt cold and strange. All the doors were open, including the front door. Even the cat, who normally slept in the bathroom, was gone. Everything felt surreal. I spent 5 or 10 minutes trying to convince myself it had all been a dream. But the open doors were real, undeniable signs that someone had been there. And that voice, his voice, asking if John lived there, kept replaying in my head. I called the police, but nothing came of it. They didn't find any intruder, no signs of forced entry, and no trace of anyone named John. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.